Thank you very much, and thank you for bearing with me. I'm no longer an academic, so most of my recent PowerPoints have been like Minions or Elsa themed, so it's nice to be talking to grown-ups. Relative grown-ups. My talk today is about the beauty of nature with math. If you have an interest in botany or in physics or in math or in music, you'll see some shapes and patterns that come up a lot, like motifs. One of these particular motifs is especially prevalent in nature, and a lot of people get caught up on the significance of that motif. Were things designed this way on purpose? Why do these patterns keep coming up? We're going to look at the history of the people that asked this question, what they puzzled about, and maybe we'll come up with an answer of our own. Where do I click for next? Spacebar. Oh, that's cool. So to do that, we have to go back in time to the history of math. Math, yes, thank you. History and math. We're going to go back to around 300 BCE to talk about our friend Euclid, one of the main founding thinkers of geometry as we use it in Western canon today. I'm not going to get into that. So Euclid was talking about incommensurability, which is another way of talking about irrational numbers. Who knows what a rational number is? Right up front. Yeah, sure. A rational number, like this one, or this one, or this one, can be expressed in integers, even ones that are 1/4. It's a ratio, and it can be expressed wholly. And we can divide a circle into 4 parts. We can also divide a circle into 3 parts. We know 1/3 is real, and yet it is a number that repeats ad infinitum. And so it is an irrational number. It is real, but cannot be expressed as an integer or a ratio of 2 integers. Now, there are a couple really important irrational numbers. Anybody heard of one really important? Perhaps it is 3.14159265535. I'm sure many of you have memorized some number of this at a bar trivia. There is another famous irrational number that also uses a Greek letter, and it is, in fact, phi. And phi is 1.618033988, also not repeating ad infinitum. So how do we get to phi? Euclid uses this one. It's in his book Elements, and he writes, a straight line is said to have been cut in extreme and mean ratio, when as the whole line is to the greater segment, so is the greater to the lesser. So for this line, PQ, the ratio of PQ to PO is 1.618 blah, 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 and the ratio of PO to OQ is 1.618 blah, 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 blah. As you divide up this line into smaller segments, A plus B over A style, you continue to get closer to phi. So phi is, in fact, our golden ratio. We can expand this into the golden spiral. Ooh. Science, math. A golden spiral is a logarithmic spiral, which means that it increases in distance away from itself instead of just going in a static distance, like a human-sized labyrinth. This is a logarithmic spiral that gets wider by a factor of phi for every quarter turn. You may be familiar with the golden spiral or the golden ratio if you were a math nerd or a music nerd or you read a lot of Dan Brown. There are eons of thought hours put into the question of, but what does the ratio showing up everywhere mean? Is it aliens? Is the Lord speaking personally to me? But what if there didn't have to be a secret divine code for this ratio to be beautiful and valuable? We're still going to be really far back in time. We're even going further back now to our friend Pythagoras. What shape did Pythagoras like? Triangles. You've probably heard of him and his theorem figured here. For any right triangle, the side A squared plus the side B squared equals the hypotenuse, side C squared. Big triangle fan. Hypotenuse. Well, he also liked another shape. Does anybody know what shape that is? We're not doing circles today, alas. It's the pentagram and the pentagon. His group, yes, very popular shape. His group of disciples, the Pythagoreans, even made it their cool emblem. We're going to talk about these awesome little dudes. I bet someone or someone's in this room has a pentagram tattoo right this moment. I actually do. Science. If you connect all of the vertices of the pentagon, by diagonals, you obtain a pentagram. The diagonals of the pentagram also form a smaller pentagon. And then the diagonals of the pentagon form a smaller pentagram and yet a smaller pentagon. This progression can be repeated forever, creating smaller and smaller pentagrams and pentagons. And of course, all of these are smaller than the predecessor by a factor that is phi. Ooh, is it all connected? Witchcraft. So there's a lot of talk about sacred geometry and holiness and whether or not the star is a mixture. That is not in the scope of this presentation today. I will ask you one question though. This isn't like an important fruit in any sort of religion, right? Apples, we don't care about apples. But we've made it to a garden. So now we're at gardens. We're going to go forwards in time to the year 1202. And you're a gardener, you're Professor Gardner McGregor, and you have a bunny rabbit problem. And you go talk to your friend, Leonardo of Pisa, and instead of a solution, he gives you another bunny rabbit problem. In his book, Liber Abaci, he says, a certain man, was it us, McGregor? A certain man put a pair of rabbits in a place surrounded on all sides by a wall. How many pairs of rabbits can be produced from that pair in a year, if it is supposed that every month each pair begets a new pair from which the second month on becomes productive? That's a lot of rabbits, too many rabbits. But as we can see here, the number of breeding pairs increases thus. 1, 1, 2, 3, 5. And if we have, in fact, other science nerds here, we know the rest of this sequence. 5, 8, 13. Brilliant, brilliant. Thank you very much. So Leonardo of Pisa had another name, Leonardo Fibonacci, and we love these numbers, Fibonacci's numbers. Why are they so cool? Each number in the chain is equal to the sum of the two numbers preceding it, and as you divide the ratios again, a plus b over a style, we once again approach phi. Very cool. Rabbits. Now we're going to choose a different species, because rabbits are not flowers. Imagine you are a flower. Yeah, art, adventure. You're a plant. You want to grow some leaves so that you can eat, and you want to grow them in the most efficient way possible. So you want to space them out with the biggest surface area to get the sun while not overlapping, while also not taking too much energy to move to the next place. Your stem is made of nodes, where leaves are, and internodes between leaves. The arrangement of leaves is called phyllotaxis, a word that I did not know how to pronounce, coined in 1754 by the Swiss naturalist Charles Bonnet. If there is one leaf per node, it is a spiral arrangement. If there are two leaves per node, it's an opposite arrangement, which can be all on the same side like ferns, or they can rotate 90 degrees. If there are more than two leaves per node, it is a whorled arrangement, and each whorl can also rotate. Each type of spiral phyllotaxis has its own angle of divergence, and that's where we get back to math. Multiple spiral type leaf arrangements follow the Fibonacci sequence. It can be pretty consistent across families of plants too. Some grasses, family Gramineae, have 1/2 phyllotaxis. Sedges, family Caries, I definitely know Latin, are 1/3. Many fruits in the Rosaceae family, like apples or cherries, are 2/5, and willows frequently have 3/8 phyllotaxis. Why is this? Laziness is efficient. It's valuable to keep us alive. Every organism tries to minimize the amount of energy needed while maximizing the amount of resources received, from subatomic particles to monkeys reaching for grapes. You may not like it, but this is what peak efficiency looks like. So, speaking of maximizing efficiency while not overlapping. Here's the common daisy serving us crowding together without overlapping realness. Common daisies have 13, 21, or 34 petals. So actually, Fibonacci can solve he loves me not for us. Rose petals are also often placed along sets of Fibonacci numbers, just like leaves on stems. And with chrysanthemums, the number of petals in each spiral are different numbers, 5 one way and 8 opposing. All right, one more math. Let's talk about the golden angle. It's 137.5 degrees, and it's called that because you get it by dividing a circle by phi. In 1907, German mathematician G. van Eydersen showed that if you closely pack successive points separated by 137.5 degrees on tightly wound spirals, then the eye would pick out one family of spiral patterns winding clockwise and one counterclockwise, which you may already be doing right now. So this tightly packed cluster of points at 137.5 degrees inside of the head of a sunflower, the number of spirals of the two spiral families tend to be consecutive Fibonacci numbers, since the ratio of such numbers approaches the golden ratio. Most commonly, there are 34 spirals over 55 spirals, but sunflowers with ratios of numbers of 89 to 55, 144 to 89, and even at least one time reported by a Vermont couple to the Scientific American in 1951, 233 spirals going one way and 144 spirals going the other way. Big numbers. So, are you also part of this conspiracy? According to Leonardo da Vinci, who is not appearing in this feature right now, he's got a guy all about it. He's got a man. The ratio of the length of your forearm to the ratio of the length of your hand is close to 1.618. The ratio of the height of most adults to the height of their navel is close to 1.618. So what is the point of all of this? As American architect, mathematician, and engineer Buckminster Fuller put it, when I am working on a problem, I never think about beauty. I think only of how to solve the problem. But when I have finished, if the solution is not beautiful, I know it is wrong. Things can be pretty and meaningful because they are efficient. You can decide. So let's raise a toast to Messrs. Fuller, Bonnet, Fibonacci, Van Eydersen, Euclid, Pythagoras, and every psychonaut who totally loves sacred geometry, man. Laziness is beautiful.